Hi everyone, and welcome back to Prof Dan Tutorials. So today I'm gonna talk to you about the Visa Bulletin for February 2025. Yay! But the thing is there good news or not? Well, at the end of this video, we're gonna find out. So for all of you who have gotten your I-140 approval, congratulations. Whether in the EB2 one category, the EB2 NIW, the EB1, A, B, or C category, the EB3, 4, or 5 categories. I'm focusing on employment-based visas, not the family-based visas. So, congratulations to you. The question is, what's next? When can you adjust your status if you are in the US? That is, if you are presently or currently reside in the US. Or when can you start your visa processing if you are abroad? That is, if you are outside the United States and you already have an approval. And what is it about this visa bulletin that you have to always make reference to on monthly basis? And again, we look at final action date, date for filing, if there are adjustments, if there are changes. And of course, I'm going to explain to you what it really means, to understand this visa bulletin. So stay tuned. Again, this is for February 2025 visa bulletin. For those of you who have been following us on social media, you can see all our handles on the screen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please continue to like, share, comment, share with people who they will find this information encouraging so as to support them in their self-petitioning, especially self-petitioning EB2 NIW and the EB1A category, so that they can all have their dreams of contributing to the United States national importance possible. Having said that, the very first thing I just want to explain, again, for those of you who are just watching this for the very first time, is to talk briefly, in summary, what this really means. Visa limits, visa bulletin, or perhaps retrogression. And what's this visa bulletin? Please take note, the visa bulletin is your go-to tool for understanding when you can take the next steps in your immigration journey. Employment-based visas like the EB1 and the EB2 are subject to annual and country-specific limits, which can lead to backlogs when demand exceeds supply. On this visa bulletin, there are two key charts: the date for filing, that is when you can prepare and submit your application. And the second one is the final action date, and that is when a visa is actually available for approval. Now, if your priority date is earlier than the date shown on the visa bulletin chart for your category, then you can act. You can take the step forward. However, you just have to keep an eye out for visa retrogression. That is when the date can move backward if the annual visa cap is exhausted. And sometimes, if demand is low, the chart may show a category as C, which we're going to see towards the end of this video. And that C simply means that visas are immediately available. So in a nutshell, you have to always check the visa bulletin on monthly basis and plan ahead. The visa bulletin for the subsequent months is always released in the preceding months, usually the second or third week. For example, this present video is about the February visa bulletin, which is still for next month. Presently, we are in January, about the third week. The visa bulletin for February 2025 has been released. Now, if you are a prospective immigrant, you have already filed your Form I-140 and you have received an approval, take notes, there is a form that has been sent to you, and that's Form I-797, Notice of Action. That form contains your priority dates, and that is for the petition filed on your behalf or the one you file by yourself. The waiting time before receiving an immigrant visa or to be able to adjust your status or to go through the consular processing if you are abroad depends on several factors such as the demand for and supply of the immigrant visas, the per country visa limitations, and number of visas allocated to your preference category. If you want to understand this thing further, there is a separate video which I released the last video released. You can check Prof Dan tutorials on YouTube channel. You will be able to see the explanation I gave further about all of this. But for today, we are looking at the February 2024 Visa Bulletin. I'm going to start with briefly, for those of you who are in the US, you are meant to adjust your status. And again, let me just break down quickly this date for filing and the final action date, which I'm going to show to you again towards the end of this video, and how that affects your ability to prepare or submit your documents, depending on whether you are in the US, that's to adjust your status, or if you are abroad passing through the consular processing. There are two things. One, if you're in the US, the date for filing, what do we mean by that? If your priority date that is on your notice of action, remember from I-797, if your priority date is earlier before, that is before the date for filing chart, then you can prepare your document and you may submit your application to adjust your status. Please take note of this. The Department of State typically requires you to use the final action date to determine if you can actually submit your adjustment of status application. However, on monthly basis, when the visa bulletin is released, there may be exception. Sometimes the USCIS will allow the use of the dates for filing chart if they have more visas available than applicants. And we're going to see that towards the end, the one you are supposed to use for the February 2025. So you always need to check the USCIS website monthly to see if they are allowing submissions based on the date for filing chart for that particular month. For final action dates, if your priority date is current under the final action date chart, you are eligible to both prepare and submit your application to adjust status immediately. All right, so all these are just preamble. And let's look at something else for the benefit of those that are abroad. The same thing applies with what I've said earlier, but little changes. Now, if your priority date again is earlier than the date for filing chart, you can start preparing your documents, but you will need, or let's say you will not receive a notification from the National Visa Center, NVC, to submit them yet. NVC uses the date for filing chart to tell applicants when they can begin gathering their required documents, but that does not mean that your visa is available yet. While for the final action date, you will receive an official notification from NVC to submit your documents only if and only if your priority date is current based on the final action date chart. Having said that, again, if you are still a little bit confused, my advice would be that check other previous videos where I have talked more about final action dates and date for filing. Okay. All right. Let's see something in particular for this video. That's about the Visa Bulletin for February 2025. Now, some may be confused, like, okay, I'm not seeing the Visa Bulletin yet. Where did Prof Dan get to see this? Well, the thing is, there are basically, for me, I know of two credible sources where you can see the Visa Bulletin. One is the Department of State, That's travel.state.gov, and one is the USCIS. As of the time of releasing this video, that of the Department of State has been updated and is reflecting the February 2025. But that of the USCIS has not been updated. But very soon it will, I'm sure it's going to be updated. Okay. Now, look at the screen. Let's take a look at something. The one you have on the screen, if you go to this website, like I said, you will see the table there. So this table is directly lifted from the official website. Like I always say, I explain most of my things just for educational, informational purpose from credible source, that is, from government reliable sources. So let's look at this. Well, we have the final action date, and this is for employment-based visas. For those of you interested in the family-based visas, please go to the travel.state.gov website, and you're going to find that. For my own video, is beyond the scope. All right, so what I've done here in this video is to put in the right side corner the January 2025. That was the previous one. And now we have the latest one, February 2025, which you see on the screen in the left side corner. So you can make comparison to see what changes. Well, without wasting time, unfortunately, if you check the second preference where most of you applied for, the category most of you applied as the EB2 NIW is for this second preference. You see that all chargeability areas, except those listed, the date is showing 1st April 2023, and that's still the same date as that of January 2025. So if that's on this note, no changes, unfortunately. And you can scan through other ones. Yes, of most interest to people is also the employment-based first preference. The first one you see on the first column here, that's EB1. You see that all chargeability areas is written as C. That C means it's current. So for employment-based first preference, you need not worry about the priority date that is written on your notice of action, because your date is current, and so you can proceed to adjusting your status or with the consular processing for those that are abroad. That's that. I think the only changes we can see here is for those in a different category. If you check down the first column, you will see certain religious workers. For January 2025, U is written all through for all chargeability and other countries listed. That U simply means unavailable. So visa was unavailable as of the January 2025 Visa Bulletin. However, if you look at the February 2025 Visa Bulletin for certain religious workers, February 2025, you would see there are now dates. So those dates is now showing visa available, but this is the date, the cutoff date they will be considering based on those that have their priority date before this date listed. That's for the final action dates. Let's move briefly to the date for filing. And for the date of filing, again, a comparison between the January 2025 and that of February 2025. I know people will want to see, oh, what is happening? Unfortunately, no changes. Unfortunately. That's heartbreaking, right? Because people are expecting this is going to move forward. But unfortunately, it's not. But what can you do? You can't give up. You already have an approval. The date here for all chargeability area, if you check, second preference, EB2 is still 1st August 2023 in this latest Visa Bulletin of February 2025. However, in January, the previous one is still the same date. So what this simply means is that there is no movement. It still remains the same. So perhaps there is nothing you can do. You don't have control over this. All we can hope for is that there will be movements, possible movements in the nearest future. And you can check again, this is for date for filing. For first preference EB1, it is still current. It's still current. That's great. Even for some listed countries like Mexico and Philippines, EB1 is still current for them. But if you see for China and India, you see for EB1 is not current. Yep. So Having said that, again, I always wish to bring you all good news, but well, this is not really the news you're expecting because the visa bulletin did not really move forward for the date for filing. There is something important I want to quickly share with you is that now, when you look at presently, when you look at the USCIS website, it has still not been updated for the February visa bulletin. And why I'm trying to say that is that you still need to check to be sure which one are you to use. Are you to use the date for filing or the final action date? So be on the lookout once it's released. Let me just show you here on the screen so you see what I'm trying to say. I'm going to show you the difference now. If you look straight into the screen, you will see this is the page from USCIS. It says next month, adjustment of status filing chart coming soon. So that next month is for the February 2025. It's not there yet. But when you look at this other one, which is from travel.state.gov, you will see the February 2025 visa bulletin that is already released. And that's going to be that for this video. I will see you all again. Take care and bye-bye.